Welcome back, everybody. This is QuestionMarc,
And I'm Ame.
and we're back for, I guess it's part 3 so far, of ranking in a tier list all of the commanders from the Final Fantasy main set.
Yep,
Oh boy, and there are how many of them?
97 total.
97, including the starter deck ones, but we've been over those. We've been over the white ones. We're now on to blue. And the first mono blue commander that we have to look at today is Edgar,
Figaro.
King of Figaro.
Couldn't resist.
Yeah, what does he do?
Well, for 4 mana and 2 blue, you get a 4/5 human artificer noble. And when he enters, you draw a card for each artifact you control.
Oh.
So once again, artifacts matter. He's also got a power called Two-Headed Coin. The first time you flip one or more coins each turn, those coins come up heads and you win those flips. So for this guy, you would have a mono blue deck with a heavy emphasis on gambling components and artifacts.
Yeah.
Artifacts and coin flips.
And while there are quite a few commanders, including in blue, that care about artifacts, drawing a bunch of cards is a really good payoff for playing an artifact deck. And the more unique part, though, is the coin flipping thing. I would say that he kind of competes with the commander Zindersplit, Eye of Wisdom. Want to read that one for us, actually?
Let's see. Partner with Okaun, Eye of Chaos. At the beginning of combat on your turn, flip a coin until you lose a flip. Whenever a player wins a coin flip, draw a card. Okay, yeah, that one would pair nicely with this.
So, but this guy, like 5 mana, 1/4, kind of pathetic stats. 6 mana, sure, it costs 1 more, but 4/5. This creature's
Not passing the vanilla test.
not passing the vanilla test, but it's gonna be a much more capable creature to block, to attack sometimes. Zindersplit's not very useful for those things. But the big thing about Zindersplit that makes it the most popular coin flip commander is that it partners with Okaun, Eye of Chaos, who is red, meaning that your deck is actually a blue-red deck. Yeah. So I think that's going to be hard to beat as a commander. You'll also probably be playing in that deck the old Krark's Thumb. If you would flip a coin, instead flip 2 coins and ignore one.
If your thumb looks like this, go to the doc. Just go to the emergency room.
Yes.
There is no amount of there's no amount of manicure that's going to fix that. Go to the doctor.
Yeah. I can think of one goblin it ain't so lucky for. Yeah, I believe that Krark did put up his thumb as collateral in a bet, and he's on Mirrodin worshipped as one of the greatest goblins of all time. So good for him, but better for us because we don't have to cut off a thumb.
That does pair well with Edgar here, though.
Oh yeah, I mean he synergizes with a lot of the same things. Now, are there that many good blue coin flip cards? I don't think so.
Coin flipping strikes me as more of a red or a black mechanic.
Yeah, you see it most often, I think, in red and secondarily in blue or black. So I just think as a mono blue commander, this guy's kind of bad for the second ability, but that's really kind of more of a flavor thing. In fact,
stop biting the switch!
Ah! Kitty! Okay, so you can play it as more of a flavor thing in the sense that you can play this commander where it's really just about drawing a bunch of cards, driving a bunch of artifacts, and then flipping coins is something that doesn't matter much.
Bean, I have a toy for you. Will you cut it out?
Oh.
Hey. All right. Hold on a sec.
Sorry.
Pardon me, folks. I have to go wrangle a soft little menace.
So,
Yes,
regardless,
your punishment is that I'm holding you now.
I think this guy is better in the 99. Being 6 mana means that he's going to come out kind of late. Being mono blue is going to hold you back quite a bit. He will draw you a new hand in an artifact deck, which is pretty great. But he just has that one burst, and then he doesn't do anything for you unless you're playing the coin flip deck, and the coin flip deck does not want to be playing mono blue. But if you're playing Zyndasplit no Count or some other combination like that that already involves coin flips, throw Edgar in. It's probably going to be a good time. So, with that said, we are on to our second here, Go-Go, Master of Mimicry.
For 2 and a blue, you get a 2/4 legendary wizard. For X mana and a tap, you can copy target activated or triggered ability you control X times. You may choose new targets for the copies. This ability can't be copied, and X can't be 0. Mana abilities can't be targeted.
So, I heard some people saying that this is a great source of mono blue ramp. And I was looking at this like, what are you talking about? It costs double X mana and tap to do it, and you can't copy mana abilities. What are you talking about? Well, I found out what they're talking about. It's Misty Rainforest and the like. Fetch lands.
Oh.
If you tap and pay a life and sacrifice it, you go find an island and put it on the battlefield. And then for
I can do
2
that
mana
too.
and tap, you can copy it to do it again. And that means that you get 2 islands onto the battlefield. And if it's later in the game and you've already been ramping a bit, you could pay maybe 4 mana and copy the ability twice and go get 3 islands. So actually, in a weird way, he is kind of a mono blue ramp commander if you jam pack it full of fetch lands. Now, not everybody can afford Misty Rainforest for somewhere around $25, and the other 5, which are, probably around $25.
No bite.
Jeez. Okay, she's having a hard time over there with the cat.
And I am going to put you in timeout for 5 minutes.
So...
Come here, baby. I love you, you naughty little fluff.
So, also, of course, Go-Go can do a whole lot of other things, copying other activated or triggered abilities. It's been pointed out that he likes the classic blue wizard Arcanus the Omnipotent, the Arcanus, who draws 3 cards, and then you can pay 2 mana and tap to do that ability again if you're playing him in a Go-Go deck. So he actually works very similar to the card Rings of Brighthearth.
All right, we're just going to keep the kitty in the bedroom for a while. I'm going to...
Hopefully he interrupts our recording session less then. But yeah, Rings of Brighthearth is whenever you activate an ability, if it isn't a mana ability, you may pay 2 to copy that ability and choose new targets for it. That's kind of what Go-Go does. Now, granted, Go-Go has to lose Summoning Sickness first, but since he's your commander, if he dies, you can bring him back. And he's a 2/4, so that's a decent blocker.
And of course he's passing the vanilla test.
Yeah, basically. I mean, you lose...
You lose a power, you gain a toughness, it balances out.
Yeah, so I think that this one is interesting. I think that you could probably dive deep into it. I hesitate to say that he's exciting, but I think he's good. So the fetch lands is an obvious way to go with it. I'm honestly not sure what else to do with him, but I think there's a lot if you start diving into good activated and triggered abilities. So do your research. He's not quite as inspiring to me as Stiltskin, but I'm not going to care too much about like the side to side here where they are in the rank, but I think Go-Go's good.
Basically, he sounds like if you want to play a blue deck like it's a green deck.
Yeah, a bit. Land fetching and all that. So next we've got a more complicated one, a double face commander, Jill, Shiva's Dominant.
For 2 mana and a blue, you get a 2/2 human noble warrior. When she enters, return up to 1 other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, so get a bounce. Mm-hmm. And for 3 mana and a blue, and a tap, you exile her and return her transformed only as a sorcery.
Transformed into Shiva, Warden of Ice.
And the Gooners rejoiced.
This is tasteful, though, unless you're into armpits.
No, I agree. I'm just...
Okay. Yes.
Shiva has never been a fan of clothes.
No. No. I think the cold doesn't bother her. Anyway, what does she do?
Well, she's a 4/5 saga elemental. On her first two turns, she will mesmerize, meaning target creature cannot be blocked. So, and on her third turn, you tap all lands your opponents control, exile her, and then return her to the battlefield front face up.
Okay, so she is part of the cycle of the dominance, where they all have some activate ability that flips them around into a saga for a couple of turns, and then they flip back around. I think that these are overall pretty great commanders because they come in, do a thing for a reasonable cost, and then do a different thing later for still a reasonable but higher cost. And while they turn into saga enchantments for a little bit, they do turn back. So they're not stuck in this form, and they also don't die when it's done. So it reminds me a little bit of like Jin Gitaxias. Specifically, the version of these Phyrexians where they are just their name. Because these ones, similarly, you meet a condition, you pay some mana, you flip them into a saga, they do the things, and then they come back. And these are all pretty powerful. Arguable which ones are great and which ones are good. But she's got a lot of potential. She also compares very much to Mana War as a classic Magic card. Cards like Mana War have kind of always been pretty good in that it just enters and bounces something, and it's a 3-mana 2/2. Hey, she's a 3-mana 2/2. It does that, and a bunch more stuff, and the thing that you return can be a non-land permanent. So, enchantments, planeswalkers, artifacts, whatever is giving you trouble. The only thing that I see as a problem here is that she doesn't really give you guidance on what kind of deck to build. This is kind of always going to be good. Maybe the synergy here is that you bounce one of your own things that you want to replay? I don't know. The transform side does make a creature of yours unblockable twice, which is fine.
I would say the biggest weakness of the Saga Elementals is that you can kind of only attack with them on their second turn and no other.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem with a lot of these sagas. It is good that when these ones are done, they transform back, so you do get to keep the creature. But yeah, as a 4/5, she's only going to be able to attack once, and she can be unblockable during that turn. But also, you probably can't attack with her on the turn that you're flipping her.
That's a good question.
On either side.
Does summoning sickness... Oh, yeah, it would be return it to the battlefield. Oh, so dealing with multiple summoning sickness things. Oh, that's gross. Get haste on these babies.
Yeah, so Jill isn't going to really have haste unless you've got Lightning Greaves, pretty much. But also, do I think she's better in the 9? Not necessarily. Okay. I've said some good things about her, some bad things about her. I think she might be questionable. Because I think she's got some potential. Like, she does a number of things at a pretty good rate, but they're not particularly exciting, or they're not going to win you the game. They're not going to grind out card advantage. It's kind of removal, but bounce isn't great removal. So I'm not sure exactly where she's going to go, but I think that all of the dominants are pretty good. You see Dion ended up way up here because he does some night things that are very strong. But Jill is just fine, I think. Not lame. Then we have Matoya Archon Elder from Final Fantasy XIV.
All right, and for 2 and a blue, you get a 1/4 human warlock, and whenever you scry or surveil, draw a card, either before or after you surveil. No, wait, after you scry or surveil. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. You pretty much always want to scry or surveil before you draw, and honestly, this effect is pretty great. It may be one note in a way that all that Matoya does is draw you cards, but drawing cards is one of the most important things to do in Commander. Also, blue is the color that's the best at drawing cards, but it's also the best color at scrying and one of the best at surveilling. So, I'm a little bit torn on this one.
How much graveyard stuff does blue have? I imagine
less,
they have some, but not a ton.
I mean, it depends. Surveilling, self-mill, flashback, those things are prevalent enough that you could build a deck that does do them a lot.
You could do some interesting things in that regard.
Being a warlock is actually kind of unfortunate here. I guess they're decidedly not a wizard, considering blue wizards are much more of a thing. So blue warlock will have like no synergy. Human won't have much in mono blue. I think this is going to be an example of a card that is better in the 99.
Yeah. I would love to put Matoya into like a Dimir deck so I could do all kinds of draw and graveyard utter nonsense. Yeah. That would be so wicked.
Yep, you could play a Surveil land, you could play a Temple, whereas in Mono Blue you can't play either of those. Honestly, Mono Blue does hold you back quite a bit, but this is probably the most powerful card so far that we're putting in Better in the 99. You could build a commander deck that just does tons of scrying and surveilling, though I think it might be just kind of like fiddly, and it doesn't necessarily lead to victory. So I think it's going to be better in a deck where your commander says scry or surveil, and then it gets super juiced. So next we go on to, oh gosh, okay, they're from Final Fantasy VIII. Do you know how to pronounce this name?
Quistis Trep.
Maybe.
There's no accent aigu over the second E or the first E, so it's not. So it doesn't look like it's trepe or trepe.
All right. Well.
Fun fact:
cool.
She's your teacher.
Oh no. Okay, I played the demo of Final Fantasy VIII, and I thought that she was hot, and I was happy to have her on my team. And I think she could summon Leviathan, which was amazing.
I think she also has some blue mage abilities, if I recall correctly.
Oh, right. Okay, I need to remember that when we're talking about Final Fantasy, being a blue magic card and having the wizard creature type does not necessarily mean that you are a blue mage in the Final Fantasy sense.
Right. If I were to assign a color to Final Fantasy blue mages, it would actually be green, because their whole deal is studying creatures and then imitating their abilities, and that strikes me as a very green-coded thing to do.
Yeah, that's almost more of a druid.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, let's read what Quistis Trep does.
Well, for 2 into blue, you get a 2/2 human wizard with the blue magic.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Insert joke song.
Like blue comedy?
Or, I got the blue magic.
Okay.
Basically, insert that joke there. When
right.
Quistis Trep enters, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from a graveyard, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. If that spell would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. Okay, so that's from a graveyard, not just your graveyard. You can, you're going to want to raid your graveyard because that's where you want the choice cuts to be, so it's under your control. But you can screw around with other people's graveyards if you feel like it.
Oh, yeah. I've heard people talking about this one in CEDH, but not as the commander, because, once again, monocolor holds this card back quite a bit. There's so many things in black and red and white that you would like to potentially get back with this ability. Also, she only does it when she enters, but I'll tell you what I think is going to be the most fun card to play with her. A kitten.
A kitten?
Yep, this kitten.
Aww.
Want to read this card for us, actually?
Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, exile up to one target non-land permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control.
Yep, so when you cast a non-creature spell, you flicker. Quistis. and then she enters, and then you can cast a non-creature spell again, and then when you do, it causes her to flicker, and then she does it again.
All right, so when you play Quistis, make sure that she's got her pet Displacer kitten.
Absolutely. Now, granted, you do have to pay the mana costs for these, but you know you can fudge on the colors. So you can cast your opponent's Dark Rituals, you can cast your opponent's Seething Songs.
You could cast your opponent's Counterspell.
Mana Geysers.
Rhystic Study.
Yeah. Well, no, that's an enchantment.
Right. That's not the one I was thinking of.
Rhystic Study you've got in the 99, of course.
Which one was I thinking of?
What does
Cyclone?
it do? Oh, Cyclonic Rift.
Cyclonic Rift, thank you.
That one, I don't think you can overload it if you're casting it from the graveyard.
Why not?
Let's see. You may cast target instant sorcery for... You know, I'm not sure about that one.
I think you could!
Maybe you could. It does say... Okay, yeah, you may cast target instant sorcery card from a graveyard. Okay, you know what? Let's take a quick look at Cyclonic Rift.
Bye, kitten.
Bye, kitten. Okay, you may cast this spell for its Overlord cost. If you do, change target to each. You know, I think you might be right.
Imagine doing that to your opponent. You know, someone casts Cyclonic Rift and they think, oh, phew, that's safe, because, okay, phew, now we're safe. No, you're not!
Mm-hmm.
And then later on it's like, guess what I'm doing?
So I think what threw me off is that Snapcaster Mage is the go-to version of this effect, where, because it has flash, it only costs 2. When it enters, target instant sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to the mana cost. That does not work on Cyclonic Rift, because you're not just blanketly casting it, you give it a flashback cost, and that's the only way that you can, you know, cast it. Whereas Quistis allows you to cast it in any of the ways that the card could normally be cast, including alternate casting costs, I believe. So yeah, I think Quistis is...
Quistis wins here.
Yeah, not strictly better than Snapcaster, because of course having flash and costing 1 mana less is a big deal. But she can cast your opponent's stuff, and you can pay alternate costs. So all that said...
Put them both in the deck and make your enemies bow. I'm gonna go release the kitty now.
Okay. Okay. So she is kind of obviously better in the 99, but is she good enough on her own to warrant being up here in the good? I am hesitantly thinking maybe yes. Because Displacer Kitten, because it can cast things from your opponent's deck. You know, while I often do say that, like, casting your opponent's spells is not a strategy. It's
because
like,
it isn't.
It's more of a gimmick. But in this case, it opens you up to the other colors of spells that Mono Blue holds you back on. So, let me rearrange things here a little bit. Okay, so...
God, I hope that works.
Is she good enough, or is she better than the 99? I think I'm going to hesitantly say that she's good enough. I think that if this is one of your favorite characters from Final Fantasy VIII, and, you know, you're basically hot for teacher, then...
you will find a way to make it work, and it will be awesome.
I think it'll work, actually. I think it's a fine commander. For a lot of decks, though, it'll be better in the 99. Like, if you're playing... I think Brago might be an example, because Brago is a white-blue commander that regularly flickers your own creatures, so that way you can reuse Quistis quite a bit. Or, I don't know, Rune of the Hidden Realms, I think is the name. Yeah, this is another, like, Blink commander that gives you a few different colors.
Oh my gosh, he looks like your D&D character.
Yeah, he does. This is a classic commander, going back to one of the earliest commander precons back in 2013. So I think Quistis is going to be maybe at her best in the 99 of a flicker commander deck, but I think she is actually still a fine commander. So then we're on to Ultros! Obnoxious Octopus.
Kids, don't tickle the octopus.
Oh god, yeah, it's got purple tentacly appendages. I don't know. That's a real risk there. And it's from Final Fantasy VI, which is
Yep.
one that you played. So did you do this boss battle?
Yeah, he's actually a recurring boss fight. He shows up a bunch. He's not really connected to the main plot, but he is pretty funny. And that line I said, kids don't tickle the octopus. That is something that he says right to the camera. That's
He can speak. He can speak.
yes, he's an intelligent monster, and he actually becomes. I think his most plot relevant point is when he interrupts an opera.
He interrupts the opera.
He interrupts the opera. He's up in the rafters. He's planning on dropping something on the star of the show, who is actually one of your party members doing a little bit of an amateur aria.
Well, what do you know? We got lore on the octopus of all things. But what does he do?
Well, for 1 and a blue, you get a 2/1 octopus, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, if at least 4 mana was spent to cast it, tap target creature an opponent controls and put a stun counter on it. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, if at least 8 mana was spent on it, put 8 1/1s on Ultros.
Wow. Okay. So, it encourages you to cast large non-creature spells. Now, 2 mana for a 2/1 doesn't pass the vanilla test, but honestly, this guy's not going to get into combat unless you can cast an 8 mana spell. And the first thing that came to my mind was something like Dig Through Time. This is a pretty popular card in Commander. Its mana value is 8, but people will usually delve to reduce that mana cost by a lot by exiling some cards from their graveyard. And then it kind of draws you 2 cards, but with a selection of 7 to choose from. So this card is popular, it's great, it's an instant. However, that's not the way that Ultros is worded. It doesn't say with a mana value of 8 or greater. It says if at least 8 mana was spent. So unfortunately,
get that ramp.
Yeah, it doesn't actually synergize with Dig Through Time at all unless you pay the full cost. Now, granted, if you don't pay the full cost, you could pay a smaller amount and still maybe pay 4 mana for it, tap something, put a stun counter on it. I think this is actually a pretty good control effect, especially since you could have instance like one that comes to mind is Rewind. Want to read that one for us?
Counter target spell. Untap up to 4 lands.
Yeah,
Ooh!
And it costs 4 mana. Technically, you did pay 4 mana for it. So you do get to stun a creature, tap it, and it doesn't untap for a turn.
And you get your money back!
And you countered a spell. So, this is going to be very useful.
Oh yeah, put those two in the same deck.
I also think of Turnabout. Also costs 4 mana, but this one does a lot of things.
Choose artifact, creature, or land. Tap all untapped permanents of the chosen type target player controls, or untap all tap permanents of that type that player controls. Oh.
So this can do 1,000 different things, but the most common thing that it does is you choose land and you choose yourself, and you pay 4 mana and you untap all of your lands. So if you have only 4 lands, then it's basically just a free trigger of Ultros. If you have more than 4 lands, then it's a free trigger of Ultros, and you produce mana from it. And it has the option of doing, 5 other modes.
The kitty is pawing at the screen.
Great. The cat is not going to allow us to have a normal recording session today.
The cat appears to be interested in the different printings of this card.
Yes. So, Turnabout is, by the way, just great in most mono blue decks, in a lot of Spellslinger decks.
Cat, cut it out.
Cat, you don't have $2.03. Plus, don't pre-order singles from the Final Fantasy set or really any other, although that's not a crazy price. But this is an uncommon, so check back in 3 weeks, and I bet you that price is going to drop to less than $1. It's probably going to be like 15 cents. Because we're expecting that this is probably going to be the most opened set of all time. Packs are going to be cracked left and right, which means that the most expensive, most hard to find cards in the set.
Stuck.
Oh no! What are you doing?
Hang on.
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to get the blanket that fell behind the couch because I think that Bean will be able to settle down if I let him wrestle with me.
Okay.
And when I say wrestling, I mean I wrap my arm up in a blanket so that it doesn't hurt as much when he bites or scritches.
Okay. Yeah, because he likes to get
with my arm.
Yeah, he likes to get a little rowdy, get some energy out. He's an indoor cat, Okay, yeah, maybe that will cause him to settle down. Because yesterday when we were recording, he spent most of the time napping up in his little cat tree. So I think I'll leave in the description a little note that the cat's giving us heck today. But hopefully that doesn't detract too much from our actual tier list here. But people, if you want to skip around to the cards that interest you most, if you want to heck even skip around to the end just to see, our final rankings of everything, do whatever you want. I'm not the kind of person to come out here and say like, oh, please, subscribe and like and, create a Patreon for us and all this stuff.
It's nice if you do, though.
Absolutely. Thank you for anyone who does. But for the time being, we're just doing this stuff for fun. And obviously, it's kind of low effort. We're just throwing our free time at a project that will hopefully get enjoyment from some other people. So to finish this guy up, though, I think that he's actually pretty good. You can probably build a deck that can work well with it, like some kind of mono blue control deck. And if you ever do spend 8 mana and put 8 counters on him, he becomes a 10/9. All that said, you're playing a mono blue deck again. That holds you back a lot. I think that he is going to be at his best in a green-blue deck that is just all about ramping. I think that Ultros is going to be better in the 99, but not the worst to be a mono-blue commander. A little bit like Quistis, a little bit like Matoya. Both of those are kind of borderline for being a decent commander, I think, but they're going to be better if you can have some ramp in there, really. Because then you'll have the mana to actually spend on some of the big stuff. And you'll also be able to diversify with more forms of, like, evasion, Voltron, I don't know, different stuff like that. So, and he is obnoxious. Keep that in mind, too. Every time you cast an instant, you tap down one of your opponent's things. And you can do that, like, at the beginning of combat, tap your commander, and you don't get to use it for a turn or so. Ooh.
He did warn you, though. It's right in the title.
Yes. So, I hope that I don't play against this, but that cheeky smile makes some of it worth it.
He is quite a meme for a reason.
Mm-hmm. And then we're on to what is already our last blue commander for the day.
Y'shtola!
Y'shtola Rule, the cat girl of Final Fantasy XIV that is the lead commander of the commander deck. I've also seen that in some of the games she apparently starts off quite young, and then I guess she ages up over time, which is interesting. It's neat to see a character kind of go through growth and evolution over time, But what does she do?
Well, for 4 and 2 blue, you get a 3/5 cat druid. At the beginning of your end step, exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Then, if it's the first end step of the turn, there's an additional end step after this step. So, flicker, flicker, flicker.
Look, and I'm not just doing that because she's a pretty cat girl.
Although that's certainly part of it.
Okay, there's an even more anime version. Also 6 mana, kind of a lot. Vanilla test fails. However, she's doing 2 things that are exciting to me. One of them is I think it's called Conjurer's Closet. Let's see.
The Conjurer hasn't come out of the closet yet?
He comes out of the closet repeatedly. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. It's doing that. It's also doing one of the Thasas, I think, does the same. This one. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to one other target creature you control, then return to the battlefield under your control. So you could say that Thassa Deep Dwelling is the better commander because it's indestructible. If your devotion to blue gets high enough, it becomes a 6/5, and it has one other ability of tapping something. However, the thing that takes her from good to exciting, despite her mana cost and power and toughness, is taking an extra end step.
You could do so much nonsense with that.
I mean, even by herself, that means that you flicker a thing, you take an extra end step, and then you flicker a thing again. And
Flicker, 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 flicker.
And actually, can she flicker herself? Yes, but it doesn't reset her ability because it will always know when you're in the first end step and when you're not. Okay. So this also reminds me a little bit of Sphinx of, is it Second something or other? Yeah, Sphinx of the Second Sun does something similar. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, there's an additional beginning phase. So this effect is very powerful. This effect can be very powerful. Now, what is going to happen at the beginning of your end step that you want to do 2 or more times? I don't know.
Go forth into Scryfall and figure it out.
Yeah. She also reminds me a bit of Obeka. I think it's this version that, it gets you extra upkeeps. Upkeeps are a little more common to do something good. A lot of times end steps are when you sacrifice a creature token or something, but there are certainly a lot of good things that happen during end steps. I just can't think of them in the moment here.
We'll leave that as an exercise for the more discerning viewer.
Mm-hmm. And being mono blue once again does hold her back. Is she better than 99? Kind of. You actually might be better off playing her in a blue-green deck again, where you can ramp to get her out earlier, and you could play something like Wilderness Reclamation. Wilderness Reclamation. At the beginning of your end step, untap all lands you control. And you might think, oh, well, is it even useful to untap all your lands and then untap all your lands again, back to back?
Cast some shit.
Well, if you have instants or if you have activated abilities, absolutely. So, you could pack your deck with stuff like that. But I still think that doubling your end step triggers and flickering something twice at the end of every turn puts her at least on par with Thassa Deep Dwelling, which I think has a lot of potential as a commander all by itself. So
Homegirl's going up top.
I'm a little hesitant, but you know what? So she is, to me at least, the most exciting mono blue commander in this set.
All right.
Well, that does put us to the end of blue, which has been kind of a shorter one here. Do we want to record black as a separate episode, or just go on into black?
How much black is there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
I think we can do black.
Let's do black. Okay. So our next one then is Arden the Usurper.
Aragorn's evil twin.
I guess.
I'm joking.
No, that's the lore for sure. From Final Fantasy 15. Actually, I played Final Fantasy 15. I don't remember this guy. I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be the main villain, and yet I just went on a road trip with my buddies.
This might
and
be
we
the guy
caught
that
fish and
This might be the guy that kicked you out on that road trip.
maybe
He is giving a little bit evil stepdad vibes.
Yeah, or evil uncle. He might have really bothered my dad or something because my dad was the king, and then something happened. The usurper, I guess he probably tried to take the throne.
Cuffed sleeves with fingerless gloves. I mean, what are we trying to say here?
I would have expected that he was some kind of rogue then, but no, elder human noble. So noble meaning he is in the line of succession. So yeah, maybe he is an uncle or something. But then elder and human? Usually elder is a race that implies that, you are impossibly ancient. So I don't know. Someone can get in the comments, maybe let us know the lore, because I didn't get very far, I guess, in Final Fantasy 15. I did a lot of fishing and cooking and taking selfies.
Bean is very interested in talking to this guy, and for once we are okay with him attacking.
Yeah. Well, all that said,
this cat took a paw to Miyamoto once.
how dare he? So what does he do though?
Well, for 5 mana and triple black,
So 8 total.
you get a 4/4 Elder Human Noble. Demons you control have Menace, Lifelink, and Haste.
Huh.
And he's also got a power called Star Scourge. At the beginning of combat on your turn, exile up to 1 target creature from a graveyard. If you exiled a card this way, create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 5/5 black demon.
Whoa. From a graveyard.
A graveyard. Probably yours, but possibly someone else's.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I mean,
now the cat's settling down.
there we go. Okay.
Good,
Whew.
BB.
Okay, so 8 mana is a lot, but keep in mind that this token that you make is gonna have Menace, Lifelink, and Haste, which is pretty incredible. Most demons are going to have flying already, so add that into the package, except these ones don't, which is kind of weird. So at the beginning of combat on your turn, that's important. So at the beginning of your combat, you make one of these tokens. It has haste, so you can attack with it immediately the turn you play him.
Summon demon from a graveyard. It has 5/5, it's a demon, and otherwise it's a copy of whatever it was before.
Yeah.
And also demons have Menace, Lifelink, and Haste. Okay,
Yeah.
that is a high... He does come in at a high cost, but that is some nasty effects.
Yeah, and you will 100% have been setting him up with things like Buried Alive, that lets you tutor for 3 creatures and put them in your graveyard.
Oh, that is a dramatic art. I love that.
Oh, yeah, I love it too. Entomb is a classic one here. Search
Also
your library
dramatic.
for any card and put it into your graveyard. And so you can set it up. Your opponents, of course, can have stuff in their graveyards. You can be doing a lot of self-mill with stuff like Mesmeric Orb, which, whenever a permanent becomes untapped, that permanent's controller mills a card.
Pretty.
So everybody is going to be doing mill, so there will be plenty of targets for Arden when he shows up. Just all kinds of stuff like that. Cabal Ritual will help you cast him because it adds 5 black if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. So you're doing the self-mill thing, you'll probably have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. You can get to him like 4 turns faster with this.
Whew!
There's...
He is very much... Okay, so I like that this commander is setting up is suggesting a direction for a deck to go in.
Mm-hmm. And while of course you're going to play Cabal Coffers in a deck like this, there's also no, not Cabal Stronghold. What am I thinking of? There's a land that makes mana equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard.
Udang.
There's cards like Stitcher, Supplier, which is probably going to be a really good one to turn into a demon later.
Waste not.
Mm-hmm. Because when it enters or dies, you mill 3 cards. So you play it on turn 1, you mill 3 cards. It dies later to whatever, you mill another 3 cards. Then, when Arden comes out, you can bring it back as a 5/5, mill
And
another
mill
3
some
cards.
more!
And then if it dies again, you mill another 3 cards. In terms of cards it's competing with, I think it's called something like Bellacore. I think maybe there's a hyphen in it somewhere. Yeah, Bellacore.
Bellacore.
Yeah, Warhammer players could maybe tell us about that, but
Can't help you there. I don't play Warhammer.
I think this is the only demon commander that I have considered before, and I really wanted to build a demon deck out of this guy. He's a 6 mana creature in Grixis colors, so you get access to far more demons. Almost all demons are black, but they're not all just black. Some of them are black-red, some of them are black-blue. Anyway, he has you draw cards and lose life equal to the number of demons you control, and whenever another demon you control enters, you deal damage equal to its power to any target. That's very powerful and gets you 3 colors. And this is, I think, the only other demon commander. Wait, no, there's also Raphael, the Ninja Turtle.
You're kidding.
I am kidding. Other demons, devils, imps, and tieflings you control have +1/+1 and lifelink.
Okay, so not as many benefits, but more targets.
Yes. So there are basically 3 demon commanders out there. You know what? And every time that I say that, I think of another. Rakdos. Some versions of Rakdos himself, of course, he's the name of his own guild, so there's a lot of cards that have Rakdos in the name. But there's a couple of versions of Rakdos, like the Defiler, that when it attacks, sacrifice half the non-demon permanents you control. And when he deals combat damage to a player, that player sacrifices half the non-demon permanents they control.
Ah, jeez.
Or this one, which I think is a better card, when he enters, you flip a coin for each creature that isn't a demon, devil, or imp, and you destroy each one whose coin comes up tails. So,
Ooh.
okay, that is your competition, Arden. How do you stack up to those? You stack up pretty well.
Especially for a monocolor.
So, okay, is he exciting? Yeah, I think he is.
I think he is.
Honestly, I've noticed a trend, especially in the commander decks, that the supervillains are some of the more exciting cards because they do something big.
Well, supervillains have to. I mean, they don't have as much screen time as the heroes, so they've got to get their good shots while they've got that sweet camera time.
And usually they challenge the whole team simultaneously and the whole world in some regard.
And they have to look good doing it.
Yeah.
In fact, they have to look great while doing it.
I think this guy's gone a little crazy with how many layers. I think that somebody working at Square Enix said, like, oh my gosh, we have so much hardware power under our belt now. We could put so many layers of cloth on this man. And they just went crazy.
Actually, have you noticed that a lot of male characters tend to get more layers of clothing than the female ones?
Yes, I've noticed.
This includes This includes the player characters, because it's like if you have a female player character, you're going to see so much of that ass. And if you have a male main character, you are not going to see so much as the suggestion of a cheek. There's so much butt covering on male player characters.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry for you and everyone like you.
Play Metal Gear Solid. This is one of the greatest exceptions to that rule.
Oh yeah, because come to think of it, Noctis here is the main character. He's the one that you see from behind the most, and he's got this long coat that normally covers his ass. So, I'm sorry. Hate to say it, but, so I think this guy...
Solid Snake isn't afraid to wiggle his ass in the air.
True, although, did you hear that they nerfed him going from Brawl to Smash Ultimate?
Oh, like how?
They made his butt smaller.
Oh!
Yeah, for real.
Come on!
Okay, I'm not going to Google it, but you should Google it. Other people, later. So, then we now have finally arrived at
my
Cecil.
favorite!
Yep, your favorite Final Fantasy character from the franchise. Why don't you tell us what Cecil Dark Knight does?
For 1 black, you get a 2/3 human knight with Death Touch. And whenever Cecil deals damage, you lose that much life. And then if your life total is less than or equal to half of your starting life total, untap him, transform him.
Which, real quick, by the way, the vanilla test on the front face...
Oh, passing with flying colors.
No one has passed the vanilla test better than him. But he's one of the few creatures in years who has a legit drawback written right on him. You have to lose life whenever he deals damage. Bummer. If only you had, like, a way of giving him lifelink or something. It would probably be a lot easier to gain that life back if you were also playing a white deck. But say la vie. Let's see what he transforms into.
You ruined the dramatic reveal. Thank you.
No, I just foreshadowed it.
I was kind of foreshadowing it by
I know.
Never mind. Okay. Cecil, Redeemed Paladin. 4/4, Human Knight, Lifelink. Whenever Cecil attacks, other attacking creatures gain indestructible until end of turn. This guy is meant to have kind of a dip, but then a mean comeback, just like his character arc. I love it so much, I want to make a deck with this guy.
Yeah. And this
he's
art
not
is
mono
sick.
black.
Yeah, he's not. He's black and white if he's your commander. This is, like, astoundingly anime.
Yeah, I always imagined him looking slightly older.
Yeah, and then the standard printing of him
Kind of makes
does
him
like
look like Flash
the
Gordon.
yeah, or like the Conan the Barbarian pose, or Tron, or there's a bunch of
I have the power!
oh yeah, He-Man. So a lot of those things. So granted, though, if you want this version in the fancy foil, you would only
Which
have
I
to
do.
pay a
Oh, Jesus!
measly one hundred
Not
and
in
ninety
foil, not
four
in foil.
dollars and
Oh my
fifty seven
god.
cents.
Oh no.
That
Oh
is the
no.
pre-order price.
Oh no.
This is why you don't pay pre-order prices for singles. At least the real reason is what price this is going to be in a few weeks. Like check in 1 month, and I bet this is dropped by a digit. That's going to be that's the call that I'm making. This is dropping by a digit. I think even the fanciest foil alternate showcase borderless version of this guy, I bet is going to be more like $20 once it's settled down. Unless he ends up really making waves in modern or standard or something, which as a 2-mana 2/3 he could, but that drawback is legit in competitive play. You have a million ways of getting around it in Commander, though.
So keep your eye on this one. He might be and you must forgive me for this, dark horse candidate.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to lose half your life in order for him to transform, but there are some interesting ways of doing that. One of them is Unspeakable Symbol. This is one that I think a lot of people forget because it was, I think, reprinted in it was reprinted on the list and then originally in Scourge in 2003. But look how you could get to about half your life total.
Pay 3 life, put 1/1 counter on target creature. Oh. Oh.
Yeah, so if you start a Commander
Oh
game
my.
at 40 life,
When you
then
transform
you have to
something-
activate it, how many times? 3 times 7 gets you to 21?
Yep.
Okay, so you activate it 7 times. You put 7+1+1 counters on him.
Does he keep the counters when he transforms?
As long as he doesn't leave the battlefield, yes. And because the way it's worded on here, you don't have him exile and return transformed. You just transform him. So yes, you will keep the counters on him.
Oh dang. Oh dang.
Now, unfortunately, he only triggers to flip when he deals damage. So that means that you do have to, put damage... you do have to attack, get him unblocked. You actually don't want to pay 7 life and put 7 counters on him because then he'll make you lose another 7. There's some number in there that you can figure out. Maybe it's 5 or something.
It would probably be 3 or 4.
Maybe it's 4. Okay, so you pay for 4 counters, that's 12 life. You're down to 28.
Okay.
And then since he has 4 counters on him, he has 6 power. He hits your opponent for 6. So you go down to 22. Doesn't quite do it.
Okay, so it would have to be 4.
I think I did the math for 4.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's assuming, of course, that you have played no other way of losing life in this game yet, which you've got a million different ways of doing that. But regardless, you can easily get him flipped the turn that you play Unspeakable Symbol for no additional mana, and then he will be flipped as a big life linker. And then the life that you gain off of him with all those counters on him
He's
can
gonna
then be
rocket you
spent
right back
into
up.
enough Unspeakable Symbols to win with commander damage right away.
Where are we putting this guy in the tier list?
I mean, if it wasn't obvious already, he's exciting. I'm putting him...
I'm so proud
he's like
of
the
you.
second most excited in the set. I was brainstorming Stiltskin last night, and I wasn't able to find a full 100-card deck worth of stuff to do with him, but I was finding a lot of things that are really fun. So, but yeah, Cecil
Definitely
is really
making
interesting.
a Cecil deck because
yeah.
he's my fave, okay? He's gotta get one.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, you can play staples like Shadow Spear to give his front face lifelink and trample.
Ooh.
And +1/+1, take away hexproof. He flips around to the other side, the +1/+1 and trample are still useful. There's a million different things. There's, was it Hex Parasite? Hex Parasite, you can pay X and a Black Phyrexian to remove up to X counters from target permanent. really none of this matters. You just have to have a permanent to target, and that can be the Hex Parasite itself. You pay 0 into X, you pay 2 life into that. So basically you can just pay 2 life as many times as you want. And you can just lower your life total to what you need it to be. Bam. Done. You can play Necropotence. This is a pretty good card. After all, it's on the Game Changers list. But effectively, you could just pay any amount of life to set those cards aside and then put them in your hand in a minute. So you pay a life to draw a card. Do that like 18 times or something. And ta-da, he flips. So there's a lot of ways. Necrologia does the same thing. So honestly, have at her. You're going to have a wild time. So, next we have Fang Fearless Lassie, which you may have noticed, by the way, that Ragnarok is listed on here. Among the black creatures, even though he's a black and green creature, and he throws off our number, making it look like there's 98 commanders in this set, but he cannot be your commander.
He's a meld.
He's a meld. He's what happens when Fang melds with Vanille. Vanille. Except also let's read the card and then I'll get back to that point.
Okay, with Fang Fearless Lassie, you pay 2 and a black, you get a 2/3 human warrior, and whenever one or more of your cards leave your graveyard, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. This ability triggers once each turn, and this guy melds with Vanille.
Mm-hmm.
That's melds, not partners.
Mm-hmm. That is important, unfortunately, because that means that Fang and Vanille cannot be your commanders. You have to choose Fang or Vanille.
Jeez, that's disqualifying on its own.
Well, I'm not sure how the rules work exactly in that this is a black and green color identity dot. So normally this would say any card with this dot on it is black and green at all times, in all zones, for deck building purposes. So, is Fang technically a black-green commander? If so, then cool, you can play Vanille in the deck, and maybe vice versa. But even then, you have to find the other.
Also, will the deck's identity count as black and green if one of them is the commander?
See, I'm not sure. I'm honestly just not sure. I don't think that there's ever been a card quite like this before. There have been... I remember Garruk Relentless was the first encounter that I had with a card that I thought that I could play in my mono green deck, and then they told me, no, it can't be played in your mono green deck because of this. It has to be in a green and black deck. Even if it's on the back face, even if it's not a mana symbol, a color identity dot will count for the color identity of the overall card, even on the back face, even in the deck.
If that's the case, then I would tentatively presume that this is a black-green deck.
Except weirdly, this card does have the dot on the back of it. So maybe that does count, but then Vanille has the other half, which doesn't have a color identity dot. So, but Ragnarok Divine Deliverance has the color identity altogether of black and green. Honestly, I need a ruling on this, because we've never had a card that...
Judge!
We've never had a card that melds into a different color combination than it was on the front. Except, Mishra? Does Mishra do that? Mishra, this one, claimed by Gix, is black and red on the front.
It's black and red on the back.
What about Urza? Oh god, Urza shows up in so many card names. What am I doing?
I don't know, man.
But I'm looking at this one specifically. Blue-white on the front, blue-white on the back. So, actually, that would maybe answer a question. Can the Might Stone and the Weak Stone be played in a colorless deck? considering it has a blue and white color identity dot on the back. I think you can play this in colorless decks.
Keep scrolling, keep scrolling.
Cool. Oh, okay.
Here we go.
One pair. In the commander variant, a meld card's color identity is determined only by the mana costs and mana symbols in the rules text of its front face. No symbols or rules text of this permanent, the permanent melds into are considered.
Oh, wow. So...
Okay, so that means that the Mightstone and Weakstone can be played in a deck that is not blue and white, which is good for it, but bad for Fang.
That means Fang here just can't be a commander.
Well,
not technically
no, he can be a commander, but then he's never going to meld with Vanille Cheerful Lassie and turn into Ragnarok Divine Deliverance. And Ragnarok is pretty cool. It's kind of weird that this, I think, is kind of ruined for Commander.
Yeah, keep these two in the 99. They do not belong in the command... This Fang at least does not belong in the commander spot.
Well, so, okay, out of all that said, here's the weird thing. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, you may draw a card and lose a life. That's a pretty great ability, actually. So if you have to play this guy as a mono-black commander, and you're never going to meld with Vanille, and you're never going to make Ragnarok, is he worth doing? Almost. Even though the most exciting thing that he can do is all cut off from him. And that's going to have to be the same for Vanille. Wait.
We might as well jump to her real quick since these two are
Wait
connected.
a second. Look here.
Oh, well, what do you know?
They solved it for Vanille.
It's Fang that's weird.
Okay, so what am I going to do? I think my hand has been forced now that he is better in the 99.
Yeah.
Because he can go in the 99 of a Vanille deck, but Vanille cannot go in the 99 of a Fang deck. But Fang's actually a pretty good card, honestly. So I think we've talked about him enough, though.
I'm kind of reeling from the amount of loss you'd have to take from having this guy as your commander.
Yeah. So anyway, we're skipping Ragnarok itself, even though, like, you know, this is going to be the overall point of the Vanille deck. But that thing, I mean, it's just incredible. We can
circle back around to that when we're talking about greenies.
Yeah. So let's take a look at Gaius Van Belzar.
All right. Gaius Van Belzar. For 2 and 2 black, you get a 3/2 human soldier. And when Gaius enters, choose one. Each player sacrifices a creature token of their choice. Or each player sacrifices a non-token creature of their choice. Or each player sacrifices an enchantment of their choice. Bleed. It's like, okay, do you want the sword, the axe, or the scalpel?
Okay, honestly, for an uncommon card, this seems fine. You're going to get him in draft, and it's going to be pretty good. 4 mana 3/2 that does that as an effect is not bad. As a commander, that's not that great. It just does it once. And sure, if you're playing one of those flicker decks that I was talking about, flickering this guy would be really great. But in mono black, you're kind of not doing that.
Yeah.
You could have him die and reanimate, but then I think you're going to be better served by playing some gigantic creatures to bring back instead of a guy that, like, bothers your opponents without actually winning you the game.
This guy's a foot soldier.
Yeah, so is he even better in the 99, though? I think that people have been playing Plague Crafter for a while. 3 mana, 3/2, when he enters, each player sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, each player who can't discards a card. So, 1 mana less, same power and toughness, same colors, and causes everybody to sacrifice something. You can also do a little hand disruption. Never have to worry about the legendary rule.
Also, can I just say that I like the Plague Crafter's vibes better than Gaius here? I mean, look at this guy. This is confident, unnoticed evil, and I love it.
And there's an anime version.
I like the other version. Look at this.
Don't mind me just casting a plague over here that I crafted.
Casually cast plague.
So, Gaius, I kind of want to say better in the 99, but also there's so much competition for that spot in the 99. Why would you play him?
I'd either knock him down to questionable or lame.
I think I am going to put him down in questionable because I do question, why do you play him? Maybe it's so that you have another way in black of getting rid of enchantments. Maybe it's because you can get rid of tokens? That seems pretty lame. So, I don't know.
And it's just the one token, too. So...
Well, per a player, but yeah.
So that's a little...
Is he a bad card? It's close. It's close.
You're right on the border there, buddy.
I'm still going to call it questionable, though, mostly because you can have him die and reanimate, and he might be good
There's
in
not
the 99.
no point.
Yeah. So, then we're on to Jekt, Reluctant Guardian.
For 3 and a black, you get a 4/3 human warrior with menace, and whenever Jekt deals combat damage to a player, you may exile it and then return it to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. And what does our boy turn into? Braska's Final Aeon, a 7/7 with menace. And on its first 2 turns, each opponent discards a card and you draw a card, and on its third one, each opponent sacrifices 2 creatures of their choice. Youch! And it doesn't say nothing about... Oh wait, well it doesn't... This guy does not turn back. This is this is your Hail Mary right here.
So this is some spoilers.
You get a 7/7 with menace out of it.
This is some spoilers for Final Fantasy X, in case it weren't obvious. Like, just to only state the obvious, when you're playing that game, Jekt is your father. And when a thing happens, he can transform into this gigantic monster, apparently fighting your party, and then when he's done doing this horrible thing, he goes away. So, that's unfortunate. And he's a nightmare at that. So this is not what you want to have happen to your dad.
No.
No. But, okay.
He looks less muscular than he came out looking in the Dissidia series.
Oh, okay. Well, I think he's a very fit man, but in a way that's...
he's definitely fit
more
either way.
Realistic for a, soccer player kind of build?
Yeah, in Dissidia, his model made him look like he was just made out of sinew.
Okay. Well, so vanilla test, he comes close, right? He's got evasion, which is good for a creature who, has a higher power and also has a trigger when you hit someone. While a lot of saga creatures have the problem that they, can't attack on the turn that they enter, he will transform after you've already attacked, so you won't have a turn off per se. In fact, heck, you tap him to attack with him, and then when he hits, he exiles and returns untapped. So you'll actually have a 7/7 blocker, and you'll draw a card and your opponents each discard one before you get to attack with them the one time. So,
But after he pulls that ultimate shot, he's going right back to the command zone.
Yeah, which
is obnoxious, but...
Yeah, 4 mana is starting to be a lot for a commander that, has a way of dying built right into it, but... I don't know, it's still pretty powerful. But does it inspire you to build a particular kind of deck? No, I think it really doesn't.
I guess that makes him either good or better in the 99.
Yeah, this is either the worst of the good. I think I might actually say this is the worst of the good. Just because I don't think he encourages you to build in any particular way. And he's slightly under curve here, but he is interesting. He is unique. He is still pretty powerful. And do I think he's better in the 99? I don't actually think so. I don't think he's better in the 99.
Oh, no.
Because what do you play him in? Some black, I don't know. I mean... He could go either way. I think I'm going to put him here, though, because I think it'll still be a kind of fun one to build with.
Just like the character he represents, he's powerful, but also kind of a hardhead.
Yep. So, then we're on to Kane, Traitorous Dragoon, which... Isn't he Cecil's best friend?
Yes.
Wonderful. Which I've heard a lot of people, by the way, saying that it's supposed to be Cecil. Yeah, that's just not how we did it back in the day, so.
Ah, for the days when nobody knew how anything was pronounced because they'd only seen it in text.
Yep. Well, what does he do?
Well, for two and a black, you get a 2/4 human knight with jump, because during your turn, he flies. Whenever Kane deals combat damage to a player, that player gains control of Kane. And if they do, you draw that many cards, create that many tapped treasure tokens, and then lose that much life.
So, first off, vanilla test. Where are we at?
Yeah, he passes.
Yeah, it's a little weird for a black creature who clearly gaining flying would be good to be attacking, has a bigger toughness than power. And by the way, if you have to choose whether you sacrifice one power for one toughness or vice versa, you'd usually rather have the power, depending on the role for the creature, but this one can attack, so I would rather have a 4/2 than a 2/4, but this is what we got. And when he hits someone, you give him away? So, strangely, a lot like Cecil, there's a real drawback to this guy.
Yeah!
The 2 Black Knights from Final Fantasy IV have significant drawbacks, and they both involve you losing life. So odds are you hit someone, you're going to draw 2 cards, create 2 tapped treasures, and lose 2 life, and Kane. Which, doesn't that mirror something that happens in the game?
Yeah, spoiler warning. Basically, Kane is helping out Cecil, but then he kind of gets tempted and brainwashed by the bad guys, so Cecil's girlfriend gets kidnapped, and Kane totally turns traitor, but then after you fight him, he turns back, and he's like, my god, what have I done? And Cecil's like, it's okay, I forgive you, but Kane's like, I'm sorry, I'm terrible.
Yeah, because, I mean, you both start off as Black Knight buddies at the beginning, even though he's more of a Dragoon.
Well, he's a Dragoon, you're a Black Knight.
Well, I mean, the Dragoon is kind of a knight.
It is. They're specifically Dragon Knights. The reason
Yes.
they can jump, the reason why Dragoons have that jump ability in Final Fantasy is because that's how you mount your friend.
Mm-hmm.
I could have worded that differently. Anyway.
So,
That's how you get to your mount.
yeah, that's a way of putting it. So, which, by the way, this art, I think, is incredible.
Oh my god, look at that armor.
Mm-hmm. Love that. Love the purples. Love the dragon elements, including in the helmet.
I love this. There are spikes, but it looks like there's not too many spikes. You know, just the correct amount of spikes.
Mm-hmm. Probably not going to poke yourself too much with them.
Your face is getting some protection, but also some visual, if I'm not mistaken here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it looks like pretty much everything is covered that you'd want to be covered, with the possible exception of your fingers!
Well, maybe you need your fingers to be dexterous so that you can flip around that lance to do different strikes, like downward strikes, forward strikes, things like that.
Okay, but you still
maybe
have
to grip
things...
the reins of a dragon.
There are still types of armor that can go over the fingers and still allow for at least some dexterity while keeping your hands covered.
Oh, it's a choice.
Like, at the very least, I think I'd want, like, I don't know, a plate over the back of my hand covering going up to my first knuckles.
Okay, because he does have a little bit of plate on the back of his hand, but it doesn't go up to the knuckle. Regardless, this card looks super cool, and, okay, to examine it as a commander, you are going to give your commander to your opponents. What the heck? That is a big risk. If this guy is your commander, what are you doing? You could be doing, I think Assault Suit is one of them. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 haste, can't attack you or planeswalkers you control, and can't be sacrificed. Those are some things that you want to have on your commander if you're giving it away. And at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you may have that player gain control of equipped creature until end of turn if you do untap it. So you can really pass Kane around, changing his allegiances over and over again. And while granted, they can choose to keep your commander from you, it's still not going to attack you. So Assault Suit seems like a good idea in a Kane deck. Also, you can play Vow of Malice. That'll give him +2/+2 intimidate and can't attack you.
Or a planeswalker you control.
Mm-hmm. Vow of Torment gets +2/+2 in menace. Wait, did he already have menace? No, he has flying. Okay, he's already hard to block. So the menace and the intimidate, not the most useful. But it would prevent them from attacking you. Also, Impetus. I think there's 2 Impetuses you can play. Yes. Parasitic Impetus goads him, so
look,
he
it's
has
Spectrier.
to attack. Oh, yeah. And when enchanted creature attacks, its controller loses 2 life and you gain 2 life, which is great.
Who's that? Pokemon!
Yeah. And Ghoulish Impetus, I love Ghoulish Impetus, gives +1/+1 Death Touch and is goaded, so once again has to attack, but can't attack you. And when enchanted creature dies, return this card to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step.
And now we're going to take a moment to switch off the Roomba, because the Roomba is kind of loud. Also, can I just say I love this artwork?
For Ghoulish Impetus.
Oh, yes. I love the way that the buildings are slightly warped.
Mm-hmm.
I always love it when...
We got an extreme fisheye lens going on here.
Yeah, I like that. I like it when the
Yeah.
world looks kind of out of whack.
And this might be the nicest looking town in Innistrad, but it's still got a zombie in it, so...
Nowhere's perfect.
But when enchanted creature dies, you return this card to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. I love that. So you know...
Oh, Ghoulish Impetus with Kane over and over again? Yes, please.
Yeah, if Kane dies, no big deal. You bring back Kane, you bring back the Ghoulish Impetus. You recast Kane, you put the Ghoulish Impetus back on him again.
You have the potential to really annoy your opponents just by having him around.
Yeah, and it's also tempting to say, like, oh no, you lose life when this thing happens. So let's put something like a Shadow Spear on him, right?
You've been drawing that one up a lot.
Yeah, it's a really good equipment, and there's a lot of equipment synergies in here. Honestly, like, every other commander that wants to attack would be better with a Shadow Spear on it. But...
And hey, he already likes being equipped with spears. At least at least as far as lore is concerned. Dragoons love their spears and lances.
Mm-hmm. So you would think putting this on him would be great, because then he'd be a little bigger, a 3/5. He'd have trample, which is great, and lifelink. So you would hit for 3, you'd gain 3 life, right? Heck, you'd even get 3 treasures and draw 3 cards. Great. Except if you give your opponent a creature with lifelink, they are going to gain the life off of it after that.
Big risk.
Yeah, so you actually don't want that. What you might want, this is going to be a deep cut, Vampiric Link. A card from Planar Chaos that says whenever enchanted creature deals damage, you gain that much life.
Put that on Kane and everyone will be angry.
So this will gain you the life as if it had lifelink when you have it, but when you lose Kane, you still control the Vampiric Link, and the Vampiric Link tells you who gains the life.
All right, so it sounds like Kane, maybe he doesn't crack exciting, but I think he's good.
I think he's questionable.
There are some very exciting ways to make it work, though.
Yeah, he's really fluctuating between exciting and questionable. Because on the one hand, having a drawback is like a shortcut to skipping good, skipping better than 99, skipping lame, and you're either down here or you're up here.
Big risk, big reward.
Well, Cecil has a clear big reward. He becomes this 4/4 life linker that makes your other creatures indestructible for only 1 freaking mana.
And Kane, on the other hand, you gotta do a little more work with him to give him that kind of exciting quality. But, as we have proven today, such things do exist. And we're gonna leave it to our lovely followers to figure out which is which.
Oh yeah, also Cecil is a black and white commander. Kane is just black. Cecil, once you've gotten over his drawback, it's all upside for the rest of the game. Kane, his upside is the drawing 2 cards and getting 2 treasures, and then it's all downside after that point that you have to mitigate. So I think that makes him questionable.
To be fair, he's kind of at a rough point in his life when we meet him.
Yeah. So that said, let's continue on to Reno and Rude.
Reno.
And I think they pronounce it Reno.
Well,
And I'm fine with that, given that he doesn't have, like, a link to gambling or something like that.
then why'd they name him Reno, for God's sake?
I don't know, but in Final Fantasy Advent Children, they pronounce it Reno. And I'm fine with it in this case.
I'm gonna be annoying about it.
I'm glad that his name isn't like Rude or something, but it's just Rude. And sure he is. Why don't you read it for us?
Reno and Rude. Not in that order.
Mm-hmm.
For 1 and a black, you get a 2/1 human assassin with menace. And whenever Reno and Rude deal combat damage to a player, exile the top card of that player's library. Then, you may sacrifice another creature or artifact. And if you do, you may play the exiled card this turn, and mana of any type can be spent to cast it. Ooh, that's some pretty high cost to get that done. But it is a low cost. But it is a low cost card overall.
Yeah, so it comes out early for only 2 mana. It's got 2 power, which is decent. It's got menace, which makes up for the fact that it's only got 1 toughness, and that it will be kind of hard to block, especially early on. And the combat damage trigger is a little easier to get because of that menace, especially early game. But then it allows you to play... Okay, so you exile the top card of their library. How long do you have an opportunity to play that card? You may play the exiled card this turn. That's rough. Okay, Ragavan is an all-star character, an all-star card in a lot of formats. Ragavan. And he does something very similar in that you hit a player, you exile the top card of their library, and you can play it this turn, but he makes a treasure. So he helps you actually cast it. Reno and Rude do the opposite.
Oh no, you're gonna pay us.
You're not just gonna pay the mana cost. You're not just getting not getting a discount. You actually have to also sacrifice a creature or artifact.
That's what you get for interrupting their vacation.
So on the one hand, Black is really good at sacrificing creatures and artifacts. There are frequently creatures and artifacts that Black wants to sacrifice. That's almost an upside. But since it doesn't make you mana, it has the same power and toughness as Ragavan for an extra cost. And it still only lets you cast that spell this turn. You can't hold on to it with no discount. I want to put this down in questionable.
Yeah.
You know, I'm hesitant to put him all the way down in lame. I think he falls about here, though, in this category.
I think we'd get the Turks sent after us.
Yeah, that's what they're called, the Turks. Also, once again, mono black commander, though it allows you to cast some of your opponent's spells, so you can get outside of the mono black thing, but the ability is really restrictive. I would think that the rest of the deck is about, like, making him harder to block, giving him flying or other kinds of unblockable... maybe just making more mana, but
I ain't feeling it with these two. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I'm borderline on lame with him. Now then, Sephiroth,
Time to drool.
Fabled Soldier. Let's bask as you read what he does.
Sorry, I was hypnotized by the hair.
Oh yes, amazing hair.
For 2 mana and a black, you get a 3/3 human avatar soldier. Whenever he enters or attacks, you may sacrifice another creature because that's how he enters. If you do, draw a card, and whenever another creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And if this is the 4th time this ability has resolved this turn, transform into one-winged angel. Read 'em and weep, my dudes. A 5/5 angel nightmare avatar with flying and a power called Supernova. As this creature transforms into Sephiroth, one-winged angel, you get an emblem. With whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Whenever Sephiroth attacks, you may sacrifice any number of other creatures, and if you do, draw that many cards. Everybody run.
Oh my. So, as we frequently do, we start with the vanilla test.
We are passing that vanilla test today.
Yes, we are. And so, as a Rumbler, just with no other text on him, he's got a good start. And then, when he enters or attacks, you may sacrifice another creature to draw a card. That's pretty great. A lot of black cards do not allow you to choose, and a lot of similar cards that have been like kind of meh are ones that only trigger when they enter. But this triggers the turn you play him and every turn you attack with him, which you better be attacking with him, okay?
Yes.
And sure, you have to sacrifice another creature, but that could be something pathetic. But also, of course, it synergizes with his other ability where you drain a life from somebody whenever any other creature dies, your opponent's or your own. So this is going to be a black deck that plays a lot of its own creatures that it wants to sacrifice, and that has a lot of ways of killing your opponent's creatures. Just death and destruction in every direction.
Do it 4 times, and you get to play the boss music.
Yep, you go boot up that playlist of Yasunori Mitsuda or the Black Mages, maybe. The Advent Children version's amazing. So, though he compares to Blood Artist. Blood Artist also triggers whenever a creature dies to drain someone 1 life. And you know what? I wonder if we check EDH Rec real quick here. Blood Artist. Is Blood Artist a popular card in Commander? Let's see. It is in 359,761 decks.
That we know about.
That's over 11% of all the decks that could play it. And that would be all black decks. So not every deck wants to have creatures dying trigger repeatedly. But
you're
a
playing
lot
Sephiroth.
of them do.
You want death.
This is one of the more popular black cards. And now you have it as your commander. Worse yet, you can have it as an emblem. And I don't know if you've messed with emblems very much.
Not much.
They're kind of like permanents in that you get them and they have a lasting effect. Kind of like enchantments,
I would say they're more of a field effect since...
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is that
they're not something you can attack. You can't really get rid of them once they're out.
They have the benefit of being a permanent that they stick around, but they have
permanent.
no drawbacks of being a permanent because I don't believe they're on the battlefield. So even if you had a spell that said like destroy target permanent, I don't think that an emblem counts. I'm not sure there's a way to get rid of an emblem.
It's a permanent.
Yep. So it's functionally a permanent while not literally being one. And that means if Sephiroth dies, you keep this. If Sephiroth dies and you recast him and transform him again, you get a second one. You can rack up multiple emblems like this, like this.
Woo!
And then trigger multiple times when creatures die. In fact, you can get the emblem and then sacrifice Sephiroth to one of many things, recast him, and now you have the written on him version and the emblem, and then he flips and now you've got 2 emblems. So he synergizes with himself really well. He's fine to recast. A 5/5 flyer is very strong as your commander. You can sacrifice any number of creatures to draw that many cards. And there's one last thing here.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, do you remember what his sword is called?
Masamune.
Correct. The Masamune. Why don't you read this one for us?
Oh, dear. Okay, for 3 mana, you get a legendary equipment. As long as equipped creature is attacking, it has first strike and must be blocked if able. Equipped creature has, if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of this creature or an emblem you own to trigger, do it again!
Yep, 3 to cast, 2 to equip.
Can I say that's just beautiful art?
Oh, yes. Oh, by the way.
Oh, no.
What's all that white stuff? Who can say?
Sorry.
Fangirls, fanboys alike. It's whatever they're bringing.
The women want him, the men want him, the NBs want him. Mm-hmm. You want him. You know it's bad for you, but you want him.
Yeah, I mean, Sephiroth is absolutely iconic.
He is the height of sexy villainy.
Mm-hmm. And, okay, so obviously this doubles all the death triggers. So this doubles all of Sephiroth's abilities, basically. And it even doubles the emblem. It's the first card ever to do that.
Arnar!
But also, when he attacks, He'll have first strike and force a creature to block him. So if your opponent has like, I don't know, a mana dorks or a commander that's small or something, sorry, they've got to block. So it's a lot more likely for him to get in extra kills with Masamune and forcing a block, just to trigger more.
So, yeah, this guy is terrifying. But, where does he fall on the tier list?
I think he does make the cut for exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, it's Sephiroth.
He's a little bit on the borderline because this is kind of a well-trodden path. There are lots of commanders that care about creatures dying, and even quite a few that involve like draining your opponent's life. But he has so many of those traits built into one. I mean, he doesn't... Actually, he does draw you cards. I was about to say he doesn't draw you cards. He isn't removal. He doesn't cheat you on mana. And he doesn't divide evenly into like commander damage, but he has just about everything else going for him. There's so much synergy with him. I think he's very exciting.
I am never going to get that song out of my head.
Nope, and nor should you.
One-winged angel until I die.
Also, side quests keep showing up here in the searches for legendary creatures, which is another way that throws off our numbering. However, that's because Yasmat, Ultimate Mark, is a legendary creature on the back. But he's not legal to be your commander, everybody, so we're skipping him.
Okay, now let's move on to the other edgelord.
The other pretty boy who has long, elegant hair, who is, of dubious morality. But this one is on your side?
This one's more of an anti-hero than a villain.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, what does he do?
Well, for 2 and double black, you get a 2/2 assassin. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a number of 1/1 counters on Vincent Valentine equal to that creature's power. And whenever he attacks, you can transform him.
Into...
Galleon Beast. A werewolf beast that has 3/2 and trample and lifelink. When he dies, return it to the battlefield tapped front face up.
This seems incredible.
Oh boy, here we go.
So first off, fails the vanilla test, right?
Oh yeah, fails it
Except
hard.
whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you put a number of counters on that creature equal to their power.
Because he's a kill-stealing bitch.
So you can fill your deck with stuff like Go for the Throat, just 2 mana instant, destroy an artifact creature. Stuff like that'll work out great. There's also a few cards possibly that add power and subtract toughness, which might be a fun one to do. In fact, can I remember one? I think it's Nameless Inversion. I'm not sure this is the best one, but look at this. Target creature gets +3/-3 at instant speed for 2 mana, and it's a changeling for some reason. Loses all creature types. This is a moderately useful card, but in Vincent, it means that if your opponent's playing like a 3/3, you can turn it into a 6/0 and get 6 counters off of killing it.
Woo!
At instant speed. You can like attack with him, let your opponent not block, and then do that, and get 6 more counters on him. Also, when he attacks, you may transform him, so...
Psych, I'm actually 3/2!
And trample and lifelink. And if I die, I come back. Now, that does mean he only acquires counters while on the front. He will keep the counters as he transforms, but then if he dies while he's the Galleon Beast, then he'll go back to normal without the counters. Honestly, that seems freaking fun.
There's a reason this guy got his own spin-off game, okay?
It actually reminds me a little bit of Crash, I think is the name, the Bloodbraid. He's kind of the opposite in a way of Crush the Bloodblade, in that this says whenever another creature dies, you may put X counters on Crush where X is that creature's power. So it's very similar, except it counts your own creatures. And, of course, gets you a couple other colors. But honestly, this is one situation where you don't really need the other colors, because black is kind of the best at killing creatures anyway. And since he transforms into Trample and Lifelink, that solves most of your problems of a creature that you want to get big. And then you just pack your deck with removal. It's kind of simple, and I'm a little borderline between whether it's good or exciting, but it's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Not to mention, yeah, there's also
Oh
that
my.
version. Look at that waist.
Why them belts though?
Keep that waist snatched. That's why. And the back face looks like that.
Rar.
Is that? I'm not gonna give away necessarily anything about your proclivities, but like, I don't know that that's an interesting masculine beast right there. Oh, this body is the punishment that's been given to me.
Yeah,
Oh.
he's always talking about how he's been punished by being a freaking badass vampire. Quit all these years and you're still whining, Louis.
Well, so in this case, it's interesting that he's not a vampire. He's not a human. He's not a mutant. He's
Well,
not any of those
technically
things.
he's not a vampire, but
He's very vampire-like.
oh yes, I mean he's actually an optional recruitable character.
Right.
And you, in order to get him, you have to break him out of a freaking coffin, which he then floats out of. So it's like, are you a vampire? And he's like, I don't think so.
Also, he got his own game at one point. I don't know if you remember Dirge of Cerberus.
Yeah, I just mentioned it.
Oh, you did? Okay, my bad. Um, but in any case, they decided to have him just be an assassin. This was done after consulting with Square and the people who are working on these games, so they are basically telling us they do not want to confirm for us what Vincent is.
He's not a vampire. We're not really sure what he is. And that's all you need to know.
And they had an opportunity to put something on there and have chose to keep it mysterious, as a few other creatures in this set are.
Anyway.
We're approaching the end of the black creatures, but we have Xenos Ye Galvis from Final Fantasy XIV. What does he do?
Well, for 3 in double black, you get a 4/4 human noble warrior with the power My First Friend. When Xenos enters, choose a creature an opponent controls. Until end of turn, creatures other than Xenos and the chosen creature get -2/-2. When the chosen creature leaves the battlefield, transform Xenos.
Okay, that's already kind of like a funny combination of text there to me, but...
That is a
Let's
story
transform him.
right there.
Oh my! Shinryu Transcendent Rival.
An 8/8 legendary dragon with flying. After this creature transforms into Shinryu, choose an opponent. And Burning Chains. When the chosen player loses the game, you win.
Wow!
Oh, that's annoying.
The heavens are too small for a field for our dance. Let us transcend this mortal coil. So, my first friend.
I like you. I shall kill you last.
Yes.
And when I kill you, I'm going to turn into a frickin' dragon. And then I'm going to beat up the weakest person on the field, and then I'm going to win.
This is scary. So
Yes,
he's kind of a massacre worm. Because when he enters, creatures your opponents control get -2/-2 until end of turn, except for his one friend, and it has to be a creature an opponent controls. So yeah, it has that funny interaction where you choose one of your opponents to go like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you're cool, fuck you, I'm out. And then all of them shrink, some of them probably die, but then one lives. And yeah, when that guy dies is when he transforms. So obviously you're going to pack your deck full of stuff that like will kill creatures so that you can, whenever you want, easily kill your first friend. And when you do, now instead of targeting a creature, you target a player. So
And
your
of course
rival
you're
is not like, Sweaty Bob. Your rival is now Sweaty Bob's Planeswalker support.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. And when you kill that player, you just win. So, okay.
That's a nightmare. I love it.
So this is another one that to me rides the line between good and exciting. Exciting because like the first part of it seems pretty fun. Although -2/-2 isn't exactly a board wipe. And 5 mana comes out a little late. Transforming like this, let's see, like it's an 8/8 flyer. That's super relevant. So I mean, it has a lot of good things going for it, but the biggest problem that I see with it is
This guy is your closer.
well, So it will encourage you to pick on the weakest player, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So that means whoever was like mana screwed at the beginning of the game, whoever got board wiped and didn't recover, whoever got flooded, or, there was maybe a ley line that makes it so their graveyard stuff doesn't work. Whoever's getting screwed the hardest is incentivized to be your pick for Shinryu, and then you kill them and then everybody dies except you win, the game's over. That's usually the opposite of what players are trying to do.
It's powerful, but it also goes against what I like to call the true metagame, and the true metagame is having fun so that people will play with you more.
Yeah, I think that the only thing holding this guy back from being exciting is that it might not actually be fun to, pick on the weakest player, kill them, and then invalidate the rest of the game you had with the other two people. They might not want to play against that for a while. It might be the kind of deck that you can only play like once per group or something. I don't know.
Or unless you and your group are super into playing Cutthroat, and that's just the name of the game. But again, that's very much a Rule Zero conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like we should put him in a special category called "Have a Rule Zero conversation about this one," or maybe like an asterisk.
I don't want to make another group right now, but we have said that about him now. So just keep in mind that this is a guy who might cause more field bads than your average commander when he flips around to the other side. I mean, if everyone's doing kind of equally, then, I guess it doesn't matter that much. Except then you would also be encouraged to focus all of your strength against that one player. And the other players will try to protect him from you.
Right.
But they can only do so much because they can't block for him. Things like that. So
there is such thing as arch enemying yourself.
Also, an 8/8 flyer will finish off the weakest player pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So watch out for that. All that said, we're on to the last mono black commander today.
Woo!
And his name is Zodiarch Umbral God.
For 5 black, you get a 5/5 god with indestructible.
Woo.
When Zodiarch enters, each player sacrifices half the non-god creatures they control of their choice, rounded down. Are you a god? No? Then die!
For future reference, if anyone ever asks you if you're a god, say yes!
Whenever a player sacrifices another creature, put a 1/1 counter on Zodiarch. Oh! Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, by the way, did I mention with Vincent and with this guy that if you do a partial board wipe or something, then you get a lot of those triggers and get a lot of counters all at once? The only difference is with Vincent, you got to find a way of having him not die to the board wipe. Zodiarch, he's not dying to the board wipe.
He is Thanos snapping, you're not gods.
Yep. Each player does that. Now, granted, that could be a bit of a drawback for you, but, you could always just not play creatures that you would mind terribly losing. Creatures that die and they already had their effect.
You could put 1,000,000 tokens on the board and say, watch this!
Yeah, he'll just get a bunch of +1/+1 counters. You can play some Reanimator. You can play some gods. Oh god, the last thing I want to see is more Turgrid. Turgrid is one of my least favorite cards in Magic, and she's a god. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you get it.
Finders keepers.
And wouldn't you know, this one does say they sacrifice. So, fuck. Zodiarch goes in a Turgrid deck, and Turgrid goes in a Zodiarch deck. Oh no.
Turgrid, have I introduced you to Zodiarch? Zodiarch, this is Turgrid. I think you two are going to get along. Yeah!
Also, Asika here is a one that you might not think of right away because it's double green. You cannot put Asika in a Zodiarch deck, but you could put Zodiarch in an Asika deck because on the back face it's the Prismatic Bridge.
Rainbow! combos.
And she taps for 1 mana of any color. So normally playing a 5-color deck, you'd have a really hard time casting quintuple black. And you still will. But she does tap for 1 mana of any color. All your legendary creatures tap for 1 mana of any color. That'll probably solve the problem right there.
Throw in some treasure tokens and you're golden.
Yeah, or just a number of... I mean, you're playing a legendary creature deck. You can play basically the 5-color god deck with this. And you also then are playing the World Tree. The World Tree enters tapped, taps for a green, but as long as you have 6 or more lands, your lands tap for any color. Hey, you can make the black you need. And then for double rainbow and sacrifice him.
All the way across the sky.
You sacrifice this and you search your library for any number of god cards and put them on the battlefield.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. Look at that rainbow.
So, yeah, Zodiark, I think, belongs in an Asika the World Tree God deck. And Zodiark himself also goes in the 99 of a Turgid deck. And as your commander, I think he's harder to cast than either of those others. And doesn't synergize, like... I don't think he informs you as much of some fun things to do with your deck.
It's
does
more
encourage
of
you to play a lot of board wipes.
This is more like a setup for the bomb and then drop the bomb.
Okay, so he's powerful. He's very powerful. If you're playing mono black, you don't need to worry about the pips very much, so that almost doesn't matter. However, I want to put him in better in the 99. And
ooh, controversy.
Yeah, that's... Some people would put him in good, some people would put him in exciting. I could see the argument for it, honestly. However, as we just saw, he's going to be amazing in an Asika deck. He's going to be amazing in a Turgid deck. Will he be as amazing as a commander himself? No. No, I don't think he will be. But, so this isn't to say that, like... As a commander, he's an F, and as a card in the deck, he's an A. Just the opposite. I think that in the 99, of those two decks in particular, he's like a B, and maybe even an A. And as a commander himself, he's a little bit worse, like a B. So he's pretty good, but he is, I think, decidedly better in the 99. Also, I would rather see him... in someone's 99, where it's like, this is one busted thing that we might see at some point, rather than, oh my god, we're playing boardwipes.deck.
No.
That's the last thing that puts him down
that touches on the true meta.
Yes. So, with that said, we have now wrapped up the white, the blue, and the black commanders from the main set of Final Fantasy. We have red, green, and multicolor to go. And so far, we've got a pretty good distribution here. We've got a bell curve.
Yep.
And we've only got 2 that are actually lame, and they're both white uncommons. Although some of these are pretty close. I mean, these 2 in particular, actually all 3 of these are particularly close. And oddly, I did not expect this one going into here, but this black commander, this black commander, this black commander, this black commander are all exciting to me.
Yes.
So, a lot of black. Honestly, I think that one thing about black in Commander is it has risk and reward, which is fun.
Yes.
And unlike some other colors, when they do risk and reward in black, the reward is often you win. you win. The game ends. If you're playing white, if you're playing blue, and you do some risk and reward, the reward might be you do a million things and don't win still. So I do like that a lot of these black cards...
It's the journey, not the destination, man. And Black says, no, it is about the destination, otherwise why would we bother?
I mean, the journey's good and everything, but we gotta get there. Shit. So, alright, I think that is our stopping point for now. And we'll catch you in the next one, where we'll do the next section or 2. And hopefully we'll have this all before pre-release is happening next week.
Whew! We don't got a lot of time.
It's a lot. All right, we'll catch you in the next one, everybody.
Bye-bye!